All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Today's going to be a FOMC day. Let's take a look at the charts and see if how we feel about what may or may not take place. All right, we got to go. First up is going to be our S&P, of course, and so we still got this overhead pressure from in the S&P. All right, so depending on what the Fed say, we kind of have to push up through all of this and get running. In order to run up through here, it's going to take a lot. But if the FOMC says, "Hey, we're going to start lowering interest rates," it may be a good sign. Or if they do lower some more, it may be a sign to start, buying more. Me personally, I feel like the market is still a little too expensive, and we're going to get a little bit of a sell-off still, especially with all this overhead pressure. But we'll see what happens with that. I don't really feel like they're ready to start loading up yet, because I know myself, I'd like to get this stuff at a better price too. Um, so I think a little more correction would be a lot nicer. All right, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. Next up is going to be the Bitcoin. All right, and of course we're gonna look at our Coinbase and see what it's doing this morning. In Coinbase, it's got this support line coming underneath to help lift. All right, got overhead pressure still here, and we got a little bit of pressure here, but we look like we're wanting to turn the ship around here. All right, we're getting back up into this area of support in here. So we came down, hit, bounced up, came down, hit a nice little pause here, right, and it started heading back up. Now we got some support coming in to help push us higher. So we'll see what happens with Bitcoin. Currently, Bitcoin is starting to look like it wants to get positive again on Bitcoin. So I'm not quite sure that it wants to be in a downtrending market, but we'll see what happens as this plays out. It's going to need another day or two or so to really show us which way it's going. But right now, it looks like it just wants to consolidate in this area here between 80,000 and 80,000 and 85,000. All right, looks like we're consolidating, trying to turn the ship around and head back up to the next mountain. All right, or the next wave up. All right, next up is going to be our oil, and oil, of course, is still consolidating in this area between 68 and $65. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot for oil right now. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, well, right now we're consolidating. No clear sign whether we want to go higher or lower on oil. But we do have this overhead pressure coming in. So the longer it waits, the more of a chance it's going to have to sell off even more. Okay, so careful with oil. Next up is our E-mini S&P 500 index futures, and the futures are looking like they want to continue to go higher. Got some overhead pressure, got some support coming underneath. Found a little support here at 5,600. So we have to keep one eye on that and see if we want to keep going consolidating in here to get our moving averages to get underneath and help support to lift higher. But we still have this overhead pressure on the S&P, and it may need to distance itself to really get through it. But we'll see how that works out. Next up, Ethereum, and Ethereum is trying to turn the ship. Looks like it wants to start to head up the next wave. So keep an eye on Ethereum. It's starting to try to push higher or push. It's still in the down market, but it looks like it's trying to head to a positive market. All right. So keep an eye on that one. It still has lots of overhead pressure though, so it's in the down market. So a lot of times you can't trust the green when you're down in a down market. Okay, but you got to have green to get out of it also. So just don't go too heavy too soon. I wouldn't go too heavy too soon. I'm not suggesting you buy, hold, or sell. I'm just letting you know. I wouldn't do. All right. Next up is our gold, of course, and gold futures continue to run. So, yeah, gold is still positive. Natural gas consolidating, wanting to turn around and head higher. Still in the uptrending market. So, keep an eye on natural gas. Currently, it looks like it just wants to consolidate in this area before trying to retest this high again. Alright, so it'll probably chop around a little bit too as we wait for the FOMC. Next up is the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ got that overhead pressure starting to sell off a little bit, but it's got the support coming through from our 8 and 9 SMA. And it tends to respect the 8 and 9, as you can see here. Right? So, we'll see what happens with that. Okay, we got this overhead pressure coming down, and we got this overhead pressure here going flat. So, it may not be too much to get through those, but this one coming down may be enough to force us lower. But currently the NASDAQ is looking like it wants to go back and start being bullish again, but we'll see what happens. It does have this overhead pressure, and we may just get a nice little sell bar today and take us even lower to get us some more space to come up and go through there. Because right now we're getting rejected. Okay, so let's pull back, get some more space to bust up through. Okay. That's the NASDAQ. Next up is our silver. Silver's retesting that high of $35. So silver's still looking bullish. It's just running into a little bit of resistance. So we may get a little bit of a pullback and then another try as our support catches up to help lift us. Alright, next up is the Dow. And the Dow, same thing as the NASDAQ. Okay, got that overhead resistance coming in. Got that little doji there. So the Dow, its moving average is still pointing straight down. Not like how the NASDAQ is. Okay, the NASDAQ is starting to curl. Let's see. The E-mini is starting to curl, right? But the Dow still pointing straight down. So the Dow is still showing some weakness here. Okay, so we need to keep an eye on that and see what happens. If we get a nice bar and pop up and push up into here, even if it doesn't go very far, it may be enough to turn our support lines underneath to help lift. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that one, especially today, especially with this doji here. Alright, that's a little indecision. They're not sure what they want to do, so they're probably waiting to hear what the FOMC says today, or they probably have already made up their mind what they want to do. They just need a catalyst. Okay, and I suspect the catalyst is still to the downside. Alright, because stuff is still pretty expensive. Alright, next up is the corn. And corn, as you can see, is that did that dead cat bounce, bounced up, ran into that resistance area, almost halfway through that fall, came back down, found some support about halfway through that bounce, and now it's trying to consolidate in this area here. Got some support from our 200, and but still has that overhead pressure from our 8 and 9, and as you can see over here, respect the 8 and 9 and our 20. Okay, so we'll see what happens with that, because currently it's still underneath our 8 and 9 and our 20. So as the days move forward, if these don't curl up and they decide to roll over instead, then we're heading further down into down market on corn. But currently corn has got a nice little support coming in, but overhead pressure may be enough to send it down lower, because these are starting to go flat, and as they go flat, there's not much to help lift. Alright, next up is going to be the Russell, and the Russell looks kind of like the Dow, but our MACD is looking like it wants to turn and head higher and retest. I don't give it much of a push, but we may get a lot more out of the Russell. Remains to be seen, but right now our Russell is still looking kind of weak. Still got this overhead pressure coming in. Still got our 8 and 9 somewhat pointing straight down still, even though our MACD may be trying to push up and cross over. We'll see what happens with that. Currently the Russell is still showing some weakness, but that may be changing. So we'll see how it ends up this week. Today and tomorrow will be the telltale for the Russell, and even Friday. As we get a nice little push up in here, it's not going to be enough, in my opinion, to get through all of this for that distance to travel. So we're going to have to come up in here, find some an area of resistance, get a little bit of a pullback, and then go through. I think in the Russell, I don't see it just pushing straight through and running. I think it's going to take a minute for this thing to turn around and head back up also, especially as hard as the Russell got hit compared to everything else. Compared to the other stocks, the Russell looked like it was been taking a hit for a while now. Even because right now we're looking at three months in a day chart. I don't know if I mentioned it. Maybe I should mention that in the beginning from now on, what chart I'm using, but it's 3 months in a day. And if we go back out a year in a day, as you can see, the Russell is back down to the support area here where it was before. Okay, so we may have hit our bottom on the Russell. We'll see what happens once our moving averages catch up. But we're definitely in a down market for the Russell, and it's way down compared to the others. The S&P, the E-mini, same thing. The NASDAQ, the Dow. Can't really see a whole lot of difference in those, huh? No, not really. So I think we're gonna get more of a rollover. I don't think we've sold off enough, but that's just my opinion. You have to do what you feel is best for your portfolio. My portfolio, I'm going to hold off. I'm not buying. I might buy 1 or 2 shares of whatever I'm holding on to for long term. Also, my dividend stocks, buy 1 or 2 shares at support levels. and that's it. I'm not buying a whole bunch until I'm totally convinced we're turned around and we're heading back higher. You know, you know, I'm not. I don't want to wait till we completely turn around. Of course, I want to try to get as low as I can, but I don't want to. I'm not trying to buy a big old, buy a whole lot, and then it sells off even more. So, uh, you know, right now it's a good time to kind of dollar cost average, as they say. So, kind of sit back and watch it and see what it does before I buy a bunch more. Um, so, a little bit at a time, I think, as we hit those support levels. So, that's all I got for you this morning. It's 3/19/2025, Wednesday, and I believe that we're going to continue to get some selling off in the market, but that's just a feeling that I have. I don't have the facts on that. According to my charts, we're ready to start turning around and heading back up, so that may take a month or two, um, or at least a couple of weeks anyway. So, you know, plus tax season, so can you really, you get the tax money and you start seeing money coming back into is that money really money that institutional investors are putting back in, or is that just, the retail trader, having somewhere to put their tax money, all right? And then once that gets into the market and settles down, then, we'll get a little bit of a plateau, and then as the institutions start to add, when they start feeling more confident, then that's when we'll start seeing the markets move. All right, that's just kind of the way I read it. So that's just my own personal feeling about how things will move. Okay, but there's no there's no that's just my own personal take on it. All right, so that's all I got for you this morning. Only thing I can, tell you is I see some weakness still in the market, and I am waiting for a better buying opportunity. And I suggest you do what you feel is necessary. But based on what I'm looking at, be careful out there. These markets are crazy.